So why are they gathered together? So it says everybody is coming together to enter a covenant with Hashem that he's establishing today, as he told you already, as he promised to the Avos. Now, a question you could ask very reasonably is, what do you mean you're entering the covenant today? This is at the end of Moshe's lifetime. Okay,
also,
yeah?
why are women after small children?
And why are women after children? Okay, so let's answer the second thing first, because which is what it says in Pirkei Avos an idiot does, but whatever. So the second thing, why are women after children? You aren't parents, but you probably have seen this in your own parents. Parents have a compulsion to want their children to love them. So they'll do things they don't like and don't believe in to please their children. Have you seen this? Okay, why do they give me an example of this.
Giving them candy when they don't want candy?
Yeah, I mean, your 3-year-old is screaming for candy, and you didn't like the last article you read on nutrition didn't say the best thing to feed your 3-year-old is candy. But you want him to be happy, and you want him to like you, so you'll give him what he wants. I'll give you a more sophisticated example. It's a very American example. This would not happen with Israelis. Here in the little playground, right? There are two mommies there with their little kids. Child number 1 bops child number 2 over the head with his little sand shovel. Okay, you can picture that. That's normal for children. Okay, so the mother of the child who received this little lesson in the difficulty of sharing, okay, goes over to the other mother who's American and says, "Your child just hit my child with his shovel. That's I don't want to feel unsafe in the sandbox." Okay, clear? What's the worst thing the American mother could say, which is just where she went? Remember, she read a lot of psychology books.
Don't worry, they're just kids. They'll work it out.
Okay, so she tells the mother they have to work it out themselves because this is part of becoming autonomous. Then she takes her child aside and said, "How did you feel when you hit this child?" Now, I could read on the child's face, how did he feel? He felt just fine. But the mother's like looking for some conflict or trauma that he's trying to resolve. It's just like, okay, whatever. Okay, so part of the reason that she's doing this is because she's read a lot of psychology and she's misguided, there's a lot of good in psychology, but some of it is misguided. But another reason is she doesn't want to tell the child something the child doesn't want to hear. The child doesn't want to hear it. "What do you mean you're hitting other kids with your shovel? That's why I bought you a shovel." The child doesn't want to hear this. That's what the child should hear, but it's not what the child wants to hear. And parents will bend themselves into pretzels to avoid confronting their children with misdeeds. Could you see where this is so?
Yeah.
So children have a lot of influence. When you look at, now move this up a notch, the current obsession with social media, who's running that show, the parents or the kids?
The kids.
The kids. Do the parents think it's good for the kids? No. But no parents hardly are going to step into that fight because they're going to lose and they don't want to. You understand this? But it's not because they think it's good for the kids or good for anyone. Okay, clear? So that's why the women are after the kids. The women tend to be more influenced by the kids in a certain sense than they should be. Clear? Okay, so taking this further to the other question which we asked, which is, this is at the end of 40 years. What do you mean now you're entering a covenant? What about when you received the Torah and you said, "We'll do it, we'll hear it"? That wasn't a covenant? So there are 4 things that are called covenants. So get these. The fact that these 4 things are called covenants place them in a different area of significance. The area of significance that they're in is that these are 4 things that by their nature draw in other things. If you do this, other things will follow. So the 4 things that are described as being a covenant is Brit Milah for men, Shabbos, the acceptance of Torah, and the commitment to bring the Torah with us to create ourselves as a people in Israel. This is said right before they're going to cross into Israel.
Sorry,
Again, yes. So the first is circumcision. The second, I should put it in time order, is receiving the Torah. The third is Shabbos. And the fourth is the commitment to create a society in Eretz Yisrael. So I want to take you through all 4 of them to understand, so you understand their significance. So the first one, Brit Milah. It was very weird. Could you picture, I may have to put you through this again, CNN reporting Avraham's circumcision. Can't you see it like, religious fanatic commits act of self-mutilation in Hebron. Okay, protests in the West Bank. Okay, whatever. Okay, so it's a strange commandment. The point of the commandment, even on the simplest level, was to demonstrate that you serve Hashem with every aspect of your life. So Judaism isn't a transcendentalist religion where you would say you have to rise above physical and material considerations and desire. No, you bring God into your physical desires. You bring God into your real life. And in this regard, it's different than every other religion. So this is why. Have you noticed that frum living rooms all look alike? Have you noticed this already? Okay, so describe a frum living room, any frum living room.
Just one table.
Big table, yeah.
Massive bookcases.
Yes.
In the whole room.
Right.
And one sofa.
And picture of Rebbe.
Picture of Rebbe somewhere, or more than one. Okay, big bookcases, a table and chairs, and a sofa, right?
Toys everywhere.
And toys all over the floor, okay. Okay, and that never finishes because by the time your kids are big, you have grandkids. So the toys are always on the floor. There's really no point in ever picking them up. Okay, whatever. So, okay, so you could see this, you there? So here you are, your first Shabbos, and you're kind of wondering about the decor. You haven't, how do secular living rooms look? Give me a secular living room. Big TV. Like, I picture the archaeologists are going to come one day, right? They're going to think that it's a god. Okay, it takes the central place in the room that they seem to gather. All of the chairs face the box. Okay. There's a carpet in front, apparently for bowing. Okay, clear. You can see this, so there's a TV. What else is there in a secular living room?
Huge plush couch. Yeah.
Okay, big couches. Anything else? Light fixtures, better light fixtures. And decorations, all sorts of decorative stuff, right? So you're used to that, and now you're seeing this. And you're the kind of person, maybe you're from Brooklyn, so you have the capacity to ask totally inappropriate questions. Okay, clear? Yeah, like, or you see these books, like a lot of them are sets, right? Yeah. See these big, massive sets like the Talmud.
You read those?
Of course. Or you have a lot of encyclopedias, because that's what they look like, yeah? So somebody says, well, the one you're pointing at, let's say they're pointing at a set of Rambam, 14 volumes, and he says, that's like an encyclopedia of Jewish practice. So the person pulls out a book at random and says, what does this book discuss? Odds are, what does it discuss? There are 14 volumes. They're all about the Torah, but what are the things that are in the Torah?
One of the books in the Torah? Maybe laws?
It's going to be law. Okay, Rambam is only law. He was a code of law. But odds are it's going to be laws of something concrete and definable. Business law, laws concerning interest and other business practices, food, how to kill an animal, which is okay. Practices in the Beis HaMikdash, which were also very down to earth. So he says, wow, which are the volumes that are on transcendental meditation? What's the answer? None. Maybe a few pages on the book on prayer, but that's it. So Judaism lives in the real world. That's the covenant of circumcision. Next covenant. So that'll bring in the desire to bring Hashem into the world. That's why this mitzvah is so important. Okay, next mitzvah. The next mitzvah is acceptance of the Torah, which includes learning Torah. So to say, I believe in Torah, Torah is the moral guide and compass of the world, and never learn. Are there people like this, by the way? There are. Okay, it's insincere. The Torah is the GPS, so that means when you're in life, you have to know what it's telling you. So I didn't know this, I just discovered this over the last weekend. I was going to my son's house, he drove me on Friday. You can have all of these different voices on your GPS. Okay, so I always thought that there was this obnoxious woman, but I didn't know you have choices and people choose to hear her. You know which one I mean? Turn left in 5 more miles, her. So, okay. So my son was in the army for a while, so he has a commander voice. This is what he likes. 2 minutes left. When the car stops, it says, out in 30 seconds. Okay, got this. Okay, so I'm listening to this. It's like, so I said, how did you get this? Like, you got one of the commanders to do this for you? Like, how did, no, it says, no, it's automatic. So there's a whole slew of them, right? You know, you can get like what?
You get like Homer Simpson and all sorts.
Yeah, all sorts of them. So the reason you could hear Torah in many different voices. So the Torah you'll hear in Gesher isn't the Torah that they're going to hear in an elitist yeshiva because they're learning at a different level and have different interests within Torah. You have to choose the voice of Torah that fits you. You have to have Torah. Okay, clear? So when they ask in the Talmud, what should you study? What do you think the answer is? Once you know the basics, obviously you have to know. Whatever your heart is drawn to. But it's your responsibility to discover what your heart's drawn to. Because otherwise you'll end up going through life without a GPS, which is quite a disaster. Third one, Shabbos. What's the point of Shabbos? What's the message of Shabbos?
That you're commissioned into this world, that's a time you are connected the most to Hashem.
That's all true. What you're saying is true, but well, how's Shabbos more than some other mitzvah? What's very specific about Shabbos?
Is it that you're accepted, like for 6 days of the week, like we're in control of like what we're doing, our work days, and then for one day we kind of stand back and accept that like God created the world,
Exactly.
like,
That's the point of Shabbos. You've got it. That we're creations in a created world. That's a huge statement. We're creations in a created world. So we'll let go of this illusion of control, and we'll bring God, who's the creator, into our world. Now, if you integrate this, I'm a creation. What are the messages that carries with you? You're a creation of God. What message does that have?
Subservient.
You could be subservient to Him. You'll recognize that your life has significance because God created you. God of the cosmos sees significance in your life. That means if you don't have to be living a life that other people acknowledge as important. But if you got up in the morning today and you're not dead, which you could tell, you put a mirror in front of your nose and mouth, and if there's vapor, you're still breathing. Okay, if you're alive, that means that God sees that there's a reason for you to exist today. And it's not only you. If you're a creation in the created world, so is everybody else. So that means that the person who you're talking to is God's creation. That means that you can't treat anybody as though they're irrelevant. Okay, clear? So on a practical level, how would you give expression to that? Nobody is irrelevant.
Just showing compassion for others.
Showing compassion and not allowing yourself ever the luxury of having invisible people. Do you know what I mean when I say invisible people? Okay. What?
I have no idea.
There are people you see but don't see. So in your mind's eye, there are two Ethiopian cleaners. Could you picture their faces easily?
Yeah.
Some people can't in Neve. Some people see them and they register cleaner and they have no face. You understand what I mean by this? So you can't do this. This person is a creation of God, not less than you are. Okay, clear? It's important. This is very foundational. And there's some people who are extremely good at this. Now the fact is that people are different, and this is why we spoke about hierarchy. There's some people who have more influence than others, some people who are more talented or brighter or more charismatic than others. That doesn't make them more creation of God than others. It just means that they received gifts that other people haven't received, which makes them more obligated, not less obligated. Okay, this is clear? Okay, last one is Eretz Yisrael. And this is the hardest one for us to grasp, because even though presently we're in Eretz Yisrael, the narrow majority of Jews live abroad. Did you know that the gap is getting close? The gap is closing. So if the Jews of France were to come en masse to Israel, it would probably shake the balance, and we would at that point be able to say the majority of Jews live in Israel, because we're not that far away from it. But presently, most Jews do not live in Israel. So we don't have an appreciation of what living in Israel is because we're not here. So this is what our dream of Eretz Yisrael should be, with everybody participating in their own way. Remember, there are all these different gradations. We're not all the same. Towards living lives of sanctity and creating critical mass. Do you know what critical mass is? You don't know what critical mass is? Okay, Paul did secular education today. Okay, so here, okay. Okay, somebody has what's a terrible illness that is no more. What do you get vaccinated against? No, you tell me. You had vaccines. What's one of the, what? Okay, rubella. Let's take that. Okay, so how does a vaccine work?
They give you like a tiny bit.
Give a little bit, and then what happens? Okay, your body creates antibodies to resist that, which it does, otherwise the vaccine isn't working right. And now those antibodies stay in your body. Okay, clear? Now, how much of rubella do you have to have in your body to draw that kind of response? Tiny bit, but this is where biochemistry comes in. They have to know how much is so much that you'll end up with rubella, or how much is so little that the antibodies are just going to say, oh, forget it, it's just, it got this. So this exact measurement of how much you need to get response is called, in chemistry and in mathematics also, critical mass. Okay, clear? Okay, so with critical mass, the whole has more value than its individual parts. It's only when this many cells are together that you're going to get the antibodies to join in. But if you give one cell on Tuesday and another cell a week from then, you're not going to get an immune response because there's too little for the body to respond to. This makes sense? We want to create critical mass. The function of Eretz Yisrael is for Jews to live together and to create critical mass that could affect the world. Okay. Do we affect the world?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I want you to understand that the effect that we have today on the world, if you could trace its history, goes all the way back to when we were living in Eretz Yisrael, had the Beis HaMikdash, and left a moral imprint that people followed. When you look at Christianity and Islam, which are the big world religions today, when they go back to saying, and what is morality and how do we know it? They take it back to where? They take it back to Torah as it was understood during the time of the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, once the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and the Jews are dispersed, they have no further interest in anything we have to say on a spiritual and moral level. Could you see where this is so? Okay, so the covenant that we're talking about here is the covenant of Eretz Yisrael. Moshe is saying, now that you have the Torah, you have Shabbos, you have Brit Milah, go, you're all in this covenant, create a society. And there are consequences. So the reason why there are consequences is Hashem commits himself never to abandon us. Now imagine being in a marriage in which no divorce is possible. Think Catholic marriage, okay, yeah? Okay, so in every marriage there are bad moments, are there not? So if you know that divorce is possible, are you more motivated to pull it together or less motivated?
Less.
So on one hand, you may be less motivated because you say, look, I can get out of this. Or you may say, he can get out of this, I better get my act together. Okay, clear? So what God did, because he's committed not to abandon us no matter what, is to make it not worth it for us to abandon him. So this is where all of these commitments towards making us continually go back to having a relationship are all about. So I want you to read some of the verses that prelude this. Okay, not to you alone am I making a covenant, this covenant and this oath, but to those of you who are here today with us and standing here this day before God your God, and those who are not here with you today. So who is that including? Future generations. So what Moshe is saying here, be aware that people who are yet to be born are in a certain sense here today. How? So there's such a thing, as you probably learned in other classes, as what's the equivalent of a genetic code that's passed spiritually as well. Okay? So imagine you have, you have two Chinese people who are married to each other. They have children. Their children each marry Chinese people. They have children, of whom are all Chinese for 3 generations. If they marry Chinese people, are their children going to have blue eyes and blonde hair? Is this going to happen? No, it will not happen. Okay, why? Not because it's fair or unfair, but because of what? That's the way it is. That's called the genetic code. So the same thing is true spiritually where there's a covenant. Where there's no covenant, people could make choices that break them out of a box. But where there's a covenant, is every Jew will feel some level of bonding to these big ideas that are covenantal. So when you look at this, this is why almost all secular Jews circumcise their children. Do you realize this?
Yeah.
Now when you ask them, why are you doing this? What do they say? It's a bad idea to ask them, by the way, because they say, yeah, why am I doing this? Why are they doing this? Over 85% of secular Jews circumcise their children, which is a vast proportion. You ask them, why are you doing this?
Their parents probably did it, or
They do a lot of things their parents don't do.
or probably they wanted a whole healthier potential. Like if that child grows up to be Orthodox, then they're going to be pretty angry at you that you didn't do that when they were a baby.
Okay.
It's good to be Jewish.
That's what Jews do. We're Jewish, and this is what Jews do. Push them to the wall and say, well, how affiliated are you? Are you sure you believe in this tradition? They're not, okay?
Yeah.
But there's something covenantal about it that they do without understanding. That's like a bit of Nasa v'nishma there. Could you see where this is so? There's a little bit of we'll do it and we'll understand it. First we'll do it, then we'll understand. We have a family friend who's a mohel. A mohel is a man who does circumcisions. You wouldn't believe the places he's been like in doing circumcisions. He lives in LA, but like he'll go to Yellowstone Park where the ranger is Jewish, and like it's just like people who are so far from anything religious in their lifestyle still want their kids circumcised. Okay, the next is Shabbos. Now, unlike circumcision, the majority of Jews today do not know anything about Shabbos. But what we do know is that we're accountable, and that comes from knowing that everyone's a creation, and this is engraved consciously or subconsciously. Jews feel accountable. Did you see where this is so? This is where guilt comes in. Okay. Next. Okay. Most Jews do bar mitzvahs. Is that true or not? Okay. Most Jews do bar mitzvahs. It's a meaningless party for them. Okay, but if you ask them, why are you doing this party? It's because he's 13. And what does that signify? You know, when you're 13, you do, okay, got this? So it has to do with initiation into feeling part of the Jewish people, which people still feel some allegiance to, but they don't know why. And the last and most conspicuous is Eretz Yisrael. All Jews have opinion. I think every single Jew. Jews who live in Jews who live out in the Pacific, they have opinions about Israel. Have you ever met a Jew with no opinion about Israel? So like, where's Israel? Is that like in the Mideast somewhere? Okay. So they could be for, they could be against. Why do you think Jews are so opinionated about Israel?
Because they take it personally.
They take it personally. You understand this? So going back quite a long time, I remember the Six-Day War. I was 17 then. Now you could figure that out, okay? But so I was living at home then. I was in school, then I went home. So my father, who wasn't observant, his family was Russian, he belonged there. I don't even know if they have this anymore. They had fraternal groups for men that were called lodges, like the Elks. Do they still have this? Yeah. Okay, it was like, I thought it was very generational, but in any case, my father belonged to one of these groups. It was called the Knights of Pythias. Okay, clear. Pythias was this like mythic Greek person who was like the perfect friend and very loyal. So like this involved men getting together every so often. I think it was once a month or once a week, I don't even know. Smoking cigars, bringing big politicians to speak, raising money for causes. You have the picture? Drinking. Okay, I think the main attraction of the group was that no women were allowed to join. I think that it was like, just like this male bonding thing. So the head of the group, whose name I still remember, his name was Al Mahler, called my father up and told him how much money he's giving to Israel now. He says, Israel's in danger, we put you down for 2,000. Okay, he didn't say how much you're thinking of giving. That wasn't like even on, you have, like it's Israel. What do you mean you can't afford it? It's Israel. Now, I don't think you could pull this off now because people are less attached now than they were then. But people who are completely secular were giving vast sums of money and still give lots of money. So at the same time, I was in Manhattan, and there were kids, like frum kids, who were sitting in Midtown with like big garbage can, like, mini garbage cans, and people were throwing in money, just like very, this is for Israel, they need to buy weapons. People were throwing money in there. So this, if you were to ask people, what do you care about Israel? Do you agree with their policies? The answer is, I don't know. But there's still great attachment. So even today, where everybody under 40 has been influenced by the left. Is that true or not? Do you read J Street? It's like the extreme leftist anti-Israel Jewish site. Okay? So as oppositional as they are, it's coming from a place of, how can Israel do this? Like, how could Israel do this? They aren't like, how could Syria do this? How could Ethiopia do this? How could America do this? No, it's Israel, So we're all bonded. So people who were not born when Moshe was saying this feel the same bond. It's a covenant. But we're told that we have to watch out for certain things. I want to read you a specific verse. Okay, suppose there's among you a man, a woman, a family, a tribe, whose heart strays from Hashem, and who goes to worship the gods of the nations. They said, there may not be anyone amongst you who's full of wormwood, okay? And when such a person hears the words of these curses, he's going to rationalize and say, here are the words that are predicted in the Torah. You ready? I will have peace, even as I do as I see fit. I will add moisture to the dry place, which is an allegory I have to explain. Is that what people say? Yeah. Okay, so notice what they're not saying. They're not saying no God, near Torah. They're saying, I could do what I want and it's going to be okay. So I want to point this out to you. Suppose you were to do something that's halachically wrong today. Like suppose you're angry at your roommate because she used some of your makeup and she sits on your bed and she doesn't wash as often as she could, so when she takes off her sneakers at night, it's like, really? So you went to your local apothecary and you said, I would like a poison that can't be traced. And they said, well, rat poison, this is true by the way, rat poison is very hard to trace, and if you're not really a major suspect, you could probably get away with it. So you poison your roommate and she drops dead. Okay? So that's what you did today, okay? So, who knows what you'll do tomorrow? So if you were to ask the person who does this, is murder a good idea? No. But they'll say, I can get away with it. Most of the time, you can get away with what you do externally. Is that true? Nobody would lie if their noses would get longer. Okay. You're looking a little funny today, aren't you? Okay, whatever. Nobody would steal if the surveillance cameras in stores would ring as you exit the store. Okay, nobody would steal from stores. So Hashem made it that there are not immediate visible consequences to sin. Is that true or not?
Yes.
Why?
Free will.
For free will. But what I want you to realize, and this is part of the covenant, there are always consequences. The consequences involve who you are and what you live with. Okay? So that's it for now.